Welcome back. CII President R Dinesh says that huge volatility in the global economy is a cause for concern for Indian companies, and India needs to brace for resilient growth going forward. I caught up with him and started by asking him about how he saw the Indian growth story playing out.
So if you look at it, I think the fact is that it's set the trend for India's growth, which has come, as you said, across all sectors. And of course, manufacturing is a very good trend which we have had, and I think the second quarter results gives us even more confidence. So I would actually say from CII's perspective, it has made me more confident to say that we are now looking at around 6.8% growth for the year, as compared with our earlier statement of between 6.5 to 6.7. So that's, if I can say that, the good news arising out of not just Q2, but also what has happened in H1. And the fact that it cuts across all sectors, especially manufacturing providing a significant boost, gives us even more confidence going forward beyond this year to next year, where as we sit today, we are hoping for a 7% growth.
Okay, so 6.8% growth for this entire fiscal and 7% growth for the next fiscal according to your revised estimates. In terms of firing on all cylinders, which are the sectors that you would be most bullish about?
See, like you said, basically the global headwinds are huge, right? So in spite of that, we are having this rate of growth. So from specific sectors, I think what has happened is the focus from the government and the infrastructure side has made sure that whether it be construction equipment, whether it be cement, whether it be all related sectors to infrastructure, have been the first ones to really show this trend. We also saw post-COVID the coming back of most of the other support activities like hotels and transport, etc., which has resulted, if I can say so, in a revival in investment in infrastructure for that activity as well, meaning for real estate. So these are the sectors where we see significant uptick taking place. And like I said, in spite of this, with, I would call it, the negative headwinds globally.
Right. Now, in terms of the investment cycle within the industry, deployment of private capex, how do you see the increase in capex deployment for this entire fiscal compared to last fiscal? And do you see companies consistently deploying capex over the next 2 years for that matter?
So I think first and foremost, if you look at the data which we have from our members and most of the sectors, and this is again, I would say, almost broad-based across all sectors, we see capacity utilization having reached for the last 3 quarters somewhere between 75 to 95%. So that augurs very clearly that people are going to be investing going forward. The second data point which I can give you is a survey which we do with our members, and the most recent survey which we had, the feedback was that H2, they are going to be increasing their investment as compared with H1. So if I combine these two data points where there is a significant capacity utilization, and on top of that the feedback we have got from our members, we believe that this is first for this year is going to see continuous, I would call it, investment going ahead. Now, if you look at the next few years, I think, like I said, this has happened on the back of macro headwinds. So if I combine that, hopefully that will come to an end sometime during the course of 24, then I see this actually significantly increasing and not really stopping, because then that's where we have an opportunity to further play in the other global markets as well.
Right. Now, within CII, what is the sentiment in terms of deploying more capital investment? Are there particular industrial sectors which you feel have the capacity to invest more right now?
No, first and foremost, I think...
And potential also.
Yes, so both are true. So first is the fact that we now have very strong balance sheets cutting across most corporates, and I think the softening in commodity prices which took place in the first half has resulted in even stronger balance sheets from that perspective, which I think has been reported as well. The second issue is, like I said, the coming back of demand overall, and one is obviously the domestic demand, another is the opportunity which is available in overseas markets as well. So this continued focus on infrastructure and therefore the cost of doing business makes India more competitive. and therefore gives us greater opportunity to not only attract investments but also have this growth coming back on board. So net, I see this as a very strong, sustainable platform which we have laid for ourselves, and therefore and the strength of the balance sheets gives us the comfort that we have the ability to continue to invest and grow.
Any key expectations from the budget?
See, this is right now a vote on account rather than a full-fledged budget. So for us, the expectation is that there won't be any change in the focus areas which have been laid down in the past, and I think this government has walked the talk in the past as well. So as long as that continues, we will be happy. Of course, we will wait for the new government and the new budget. And I think our overall approach to fiscal consolidation, to infrastructure focus, to employment generation is not going to be very different.
But if you said that the focus areas, there should not be any policy shift, any one priority area where you would not like any change, you would like continuity?
Infrastructure, investments in infrastructure. Because that is what has actually propelled and made India more competitive and created a significant level of interest from outside to look at India. Because the way in which infrastructure has been used, I mean, if you look at, let me clarify that. If you look at the PM Gati Shakti program, the digitization or the digital utilization of how the data is going to be done is something which I think India stands out as unique. And every investor with whom we have spoken to in the recent past from overseas have mentioned that. So I think that for us is the big differentiation, which I think this government will continue.
Any reform measures or unfinished agenda for this government, according to you, which should be embarked upon now?
I think we have to wait for the new post-election to be come back on that. But like I mentioned, I think in the earlier occasion when we had a chance to discuss, there is obviously the ability to further make sure that we use our federal structure to create even more better opportunities and build consensus on some of the reforms which have been still pending. And that's a process in itself, so it's not going to happen overnight. We believe that's something which we will be waiting for when the new government comes in place.
A big message from this election result, BJP winning 3 major states, 3 major battlegrounds in the Hindi heartland. Chhattisgarh was a surprise.
See, I'm not a political pundit, so I think the way I look at it is that it is good, that it is, the results are out and we know what's happened. And for us, I think as industry, continuity of policy is most important. And whichever party is in power, making sure that we have our agenda clear and explained is, I think, very important. So it's a positive sign from the fact that there is a continuity of policy.
Right, but on the ground, when people are voting, we're seeing more and more importance of youth, farmers, women in this election. Day-to-day issues are mattering a lot. Yes, there is a huge debate about freebies, but that also boils down to what people expect their lives to change on a day-to-day basis. Considering the patterns, the emotions that the voters are showing, what is the cue for the Indian economy and the ask for the Aam Aadmi, so to say, as you see it as a CII president?
No, I think from CII side, equitable growth is something which we believe in, and that's something which we very much welcome. And as I said, as long as the fiscal consolidation is clearly looked after, any expenditure which is done to support not just the Aam Aadmi, but those who really deserve that support is something which we definitely look forward to, because that's what is going to benefit India in the long term. And as industry, I think we definitely welcome that.
Right. My final 2 questions. Recently, we've seen a lot of ED investigations against companies. Raids have been carried out. A lot of GST notices have been sent to various companies. Does this somehow create a fear in the industry? Is this something that you're engaged with the government on?
No, we have not actually had, I would call it, any negative feedback from our members in terms of that. I think as long as it is, I would call it, equitable in approach, meaning in the sense that it is really issues which are being tackled and which are problems which are actually being faced, I think we'll have to manage. As far as from CII side is concerned, we obviously stand by companies who stand for doing good for the economy, good for the country, follow the rules, and I think that's what we welcome.
What has been the business impact or the economic loss to Chennai, to Tamil Nadu as a result of the cyclone? Big concerns on that right now?
So it has actually been a very terrible event which has happened, as all of us know, and the fact that the kind of deluge is never, has been unprecedented. But having said that, I think the good thing is that at least as far as what we are seeing on the ground in terms of the factories, production, etc., they were all affected for less than 36 hours. And most of them have now come back to their production. So I would say the impact to human beings and the quality of life has been quite severe, but the response has been very good. And equally important has been the fact that we now believe that they are now come back to, as I said, production. So I don't think there will be a huge business impact, because the 1.5 days loss can be made up, and especially since it was, I would call it, reasonably prepared for, and we were all ready, but we never expected this much of rain. But other than that, I think it was fine.
Finally, any challenges that you see for the Indian economy in the near term?
I would say it's mostly external and overall changes which may take place from there, because there is huge volatility in whatever happens from the global economy perspective. And I think that's something we need to be prepared for. So resilient growth is something which we as Indian corporates have to be ready for. Other than that, I'm not seeing any short-term issues which we as industry will face.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. More news and updates continue right here.